Are you tired of riding the monthly emotional roller coaster? Or maybe you're worried about your age. Maybe you're feeling beat up with your body betraying you when all you want to do is hold your baby in your arms. I'm Dr. Karen, and I have a vision. It's that every woman who desires to have a baby can and does. I help women like you realize that your history is not your destiny. I reveal powerful, practical, yet often neglected details that you can use to reclaim your body's natural wisdom, bridge the mind-body connection, and turn your baby-making possibilities into probabilities. Hello and welcome to the Pregnancy Success Podcast. I'm Dr. Karen, and thanks for being here again this week. This is where I get to help you reclaim your innate, your natural body's wisdom so that you can move closer to holding your baby. Today, I'm going to talk about your diet. Not fad diets, but what you eat. Like a cow's diet is grass and water, a pig's diet, well, that's everything. And the human diet, what would be best served for fertility purpose in the human diet? I'm going to talk about several things, but one thing in particular is the clean 15 and the dirty dozen. And if you want some more details, you can find the link to this in the show notes or on my website at www.thebabymakinggenius.com. So let's dive right in. Did you know that there is a study from the Harvard T.H. Chan Public School of Health showing that there is a fertility-focused diet where you can actually reduce the risk of ovulation infertility by up to 66%. Yes, that's a whopping big number. You can cut it down by 2/3 by using this framework for food. As well, according to research in the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology, if you have an iron deficiency or a vitamin D deficiency, this could potentially double that time to conception, so that it's going to make it harder. If you're deficient in these two, iron and vitamin D, it could double that time to conception. So today, let's break that down. But before we do, I would just like to remind you that the diet is part number 3 in Dr. Karen's Body Basics, my Body Basics series, where we first talked about the breath. You can only live for a few minutes without breath. Then the second one was water, where if you're not well hydrated, that affects your fertility and the hormonal milieu. You can only live for 3 or 4 days without water, maybe a little bit longer. Everybody's different. And the same with your diet. Without food, you could easily last 3 to 4 weeks. But we want quality food. We want quality nutrition to nourish the body so that we can have that right hormonal milieu, so that we can ovulate, have that beautiful lining to receive that fertilized egg, and our uterus is a wonderful house to hold that growing and developing fetus. And again, as I mentioned, everybody's body is different. And if you have any issues, challenges already, you might want to make sure that you're working with a dietitian, a registered nutritionist, even maybe a functional medicine physician who's focused on the nutritional benefits related to diet. Why is your diet important? Well, as I said, your hormones are balanced by a balanced diet, and even the production of your steroid hormones, the sex hormones, estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, all of these are created with a healthy diet. If you have a poor diet, you make less of these and less quality of these, so then the function is just not there. As well, you want to make sure you balance your blood sugars, because women who have polycystic ovaries have an insulin resistance. Women who have already an insulin resistance without any other diagnosis, thyroid conditions, all of these things are critical for having a balanced, healthy diet and balanced blood sugars. Healthy fats as well are essential for those sex steroid hormone productions. I myself noticed when I changed up my diet when I was on call and working, from having this kind of Great cereal for breakfast. It was whole grain. There was honey in it, so it was good for me. But I wasn't having protein. So, I'd be sluggish late morning until I could eat some lunch. Hard trying to figure out how to carry around some protein. But when I figured out what would work with my schedule and my routine and having regular intervals of protein with my rest of my diet, it really made a difference, and upping the water to my attention, concentration, focus, my energy, how I felt, and how everything was functioning, even my sleep. So let's dive into this fertility food framework. They work on 4 pillars: protein, healthy fats, complex carbohydrates, as well as micronutrients. So those are the 4 pieces that are essential. And let's just dive into the protein piece. Well, protein is needed for your tissues of your bones, of your muscles, as well as it helps with your enzyme production and your immune support. So all of these things, everything is interconnected. So just because it does one thing, don't neglect that it might have an impact, your immune health, on the rest of your system, especially for your fertility. And we want to look at these proteins as coming from legumes, organic poultry. That white meat is really important versus red meats, beef and things with different higher fats, and wild fish. Fish also, you got to be wary of, if there is where it's caught with heavy metals and things. So it's always a balance. You always need to be aware of so many things without micromanaging it too much, but just making some conscious shifts in what's going on in your protein intake. The second thing is the healthy fats. Fat serves as an energy source for the body, but it also helps in absorbing those fat-soluble vitamins. So here you are, you have a great diet, but if you don't have healthy fats there, if you have a low-fat diet, you're not absorbing some of these essential vitamins that are critical for the running of your body. And healthy fats also play a big role in your cell structure because every one of your 37 trillion cells in your body has a membrane. And that membrane is made up of fat. There also is salt in it. So it's really, really important that you have appropriate healthy fats in your diet. You want to avoid trans fats and these other saturated fats. So things like avocados and nuts and extra virgin olive oil are really, really important. And also to be aware that because now we can buy bags of nuts, like 2-kilogram bags of nuts, we don't want to overdo it with the healthy fats. Healthy fats in moderation. So it's the right balance of all of these. So you want to make sure that you don't take, at a go, you're eating, 20 or 30 almonds when the serving size is only 6 to 10, because then you're still in the more, and more is not better. The next one is complex carbohydrates. And these are the primary fuel sources of the body that get broken down into your bloodstream, your blood sugar. And this is your primary source of energy. And if you have too many carbohydrates in your system, it becomes stored as glycogen in the liver, in your muscles, and then over time it gets converted to fat. Again, having the right amount of the complex carbohydrates. So vegetables are carbohydrates, and they're a natural source of sugars, as well as fruit. So we want to make sure we have them, spaced out in a good moderation so that we don't have high sugar spikes and then low sugar lows. So just keeping a balanced diet of your complex carbohydrates, which can include, if your gut can manage, whole grains. And if grains like wheat is not good for you because of the gluten, consider things like quinoa or rice. Brown rice is great. Root vegetables are also excellent, and sweet potatoes is one of the ones that is also excellent as well. The fourth component of this fertility framework is the micronutrients. And micronutrients, like vitamins and minerals, are really essential for your body's growth, development, and functioning. It helps with the immune function and disease prevention. And they also play critical roles in your metabolism and your tissue health. So eating lots of green leafy vegetables full of folate and iron. Iron, if you've had challenges with your menstrual cycles and period flow, you may be low in your iron. So really important there. Trying to conceive a baby, we want to make sure we have lots of folate in our diet. If not, we want to be supplementing with folic acid. There is a known birth defect called neural tube defects that is fairly common. And if it's in your family, it's even more likely to happen. So this can be totally eliminated by having the adequate amount of folate in your diet or folic acid supplements. And then your citrus fruits have things like vitamin C, and nuts have things like selenium and zinc, which are important for your thyroid function. So with all of this four-pillar framework, we also want to look at, how and where to buy with regards to the clean 15 and the dirty dozen. So the clean 15 refers to that they have minimal amounts of pesticides, insecticides, herbicides that are in these fruits and vegetables, the clean 15, most often because we don't eat the peel, and therefore the rest of the inside of it is not as affected. So you can buy these fruits and vegetables basically anywhere. The dirty dozen, however, is something that, you likely don't peel your grapes, and it's such a little thin peel that the herbicides, pesticides, insecticides can get into the fruit. And these are foods that you would want to eat that you buy organically so that they have a minimal volume of this stuff, if ideally none at all. You can't account for adjacent spraying, but they do their best. And so you want to make sure you're looking at those. And those links to those two handouts are in the show notes or on my website. Let's move into some of the questions that sometimes I'm asked about, well, I'm a vegetarian or I'm a vegan. Like, is that going to impair my ability to conceive? And great diets, great ways of eating and living, nice and clean. You're minimizing some negative things in your life. Absolutely. However, you want to make sure you have enough of your protein, because protein is the building block of all your tissues, your bones, your muscles and joints. So we want to make sure we have adequate protein in the body, as well as vegetarian and vegans can be low in things like B12, iron, and omega-3 fatty acids. You want to follow with your healthcare provider that you have adequate amounts of these in your system. So it's a great diet to follow, a way of eating, but just be cognizant of the potential pitfalls there for you if you are a vegetarian or a vegan. And then following that, probably the next most common question I'm asked is, what's the best diet to be on to get pregnant? Well, there are a lot of fad diets out there, and you want to be cautious with those because there is some, if not a lot, of restriction. You may find that what I described in the fertility framework as restricting, if that's not the way you eat up until now. So we want to make sure that you're following that healthy eating diet. So if you want a book to follow, something online to peruse that would follow that framework closely, you're probably looking at the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet follows the protein, complex carbohydrates, healthy fats, you eat about a third, and a third of each of those. So you have a well-balanced diet. So if you're looking for recipes within that, that's probably the closest diet to follow as a fad diet or something that has been otherwise labeled and characterized and well published on. The next common question I get would be, what's superfood, or what's the best food that I can eat to enhance my fertility or to improve my husband's sperm count? Again, well, that will vary because everybody's different with where they've come from, what they eat, and how they live, and what their lifestyle is like. So I would redirect you back to the clean 15 and the dirty dozen, as well as, are you balancing your proteins with your complex carbohydrates with your healthy fats? So those are really important. Again, making sure you have lots of water and putting a little pinch of salt in that water will never go astray, unless you have a known blood pressure condition that tells you that you need to limit salt. And that is a very uncommon blood pressure condition. So most of us can handle that just fine. One of my clients in particular was really leaning into this low carb, low fat, salt restrictive diet. And so she found that really, really hard to do, but she did, dive into this for about 3 or 4 months. And what she found was that over time that her cycles that were normal originally became irregular. She had more fatigue, she had more headaches, she wasn't feeling good. And so when she shifted back to reintroducing healthy fats into her diet, as well as a little bit of salt, because remember I said every one of your 37 trillion cells have a cell membrane of fat? Well, in order to transport that nutrient that's in your bloodstream or in the adjacent cell into that one cell to work and function properly, it needs salt in those channels. So every one of your cells needs salt. So if you don't have the salt, it's not going to work really well. So not that she overdid it with the salt, but she stopped restricting everything about her salt intake. Once she noticed that food was a little bit more flavorful with a little bit of added salt, just a little bit. And when she was adding some salt, we talked about making sure it was, iodized salt, table salt, because Himalayan sea salt, although great with other micronutrients in it, has very little iodine. So we want some support for the thyroid. With that, she had a little bit more water in her intake, and she reversed all of those cycle irregularities that were coming about and totally improved her cycle quality and flow. It was even better than it was before. So her cycles actually were shorter and had less flow when she actually did the diet 180. So as I mentioned, going on these low fat culprit diets really are not healthy. The other thing is looking at, they're touted as being healthy. These granola bars, these processed snack bars, high in energy, great in protein, but they're probably also full of sugar and refined carbohydrates. Just really is, they're going to give you a good sugar high, not as bad for you probably as a chocolate bar per se, but then you're still going to have that dip in your energy level until you have more balanced food like proteins, and if you're snacking on things, low glycemic fruits and vegetables. The other thing that women often are working with that's not helping them is fasting. If you're a woman who's looking to conceive and you're overweight and you want to get some weight off before you lean into more fertility support or additional assisted reproductive technologies before the clinic might help you with your IVF. They may talk to you about releasing some weight. And so women do a lot of fasting at this point in time in their life. And that is just going to screw up your hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis. The hormones are going to be all out of sync, and that really won't serve you well. The only kind of fasting that really makes a difference to the body is abbreviated intermittent fasting, 10, 12, 16 hours max. So you could eat, during 8 hours of your day, breakfast at 8 a.m., lunch at noon, supper by, 5, 4, 6, and then you stop eating. You drink only water, and that does actually give your gut that rest phase. When we rest our gut, just with the water, it just heals the lining of your digestive tract. So you can actually absorb the nutrition that you're eating. Those micronutrients are absorbed so much better, and you will feel infinitely better. So you don't need to do days of fasting. Some religious groups do believe in more detailed types of fasting. And I am aware that a lot of them have relief from that if you are pregnant or you're nursing a newborn. Well, I would advise you to talk to your spiritual advisor and let them know that you're trying to conceive. Maybe you've had challenges, and that this fasting at this time is not the best time for you to be doing that. Not that you can't continue with whatever practices that work well when you're out of this phase. It's just you want to make sure that you're leaning into practices that will serve you well, because when you do some of those things for extended periods of time, a month, 2 months, 6 months, you can actually harm the system, and it could take twice as long to catch up and revert back to normal. Another question I'm often asked is about these carbs, like carbs are evil. Well, if you're talking about carbs like the, piece of cake, your pie, your chocolate bar, potato chips, well, yeah, those kinds of carbohydrates really aren't good for you. They're not quality carbohydrates. They're not the quality complex carbohydrates that would really serve you well. So look at what really you're talking about, because fruits and vegetables are carbs, so those carbs aren't evil. We want to make sure we're balancing that, as I said, that sugar index, that glycemic index. So you don't want to only be eating out of the food guide. You don't want, fruits and vegetables to be that combination that it is 3/4 fruits and minimal to no vegetables. We want that reversed so that you actually can feel well and your hormonal balance stays nice and steady. I've had a lot of ladies talk to me about, oh, well, because they do need to release the weight. I've heard keto is the best way to do that. And for women who is trying to conceive or will be looking to conceive shortly after releasing some weight to help with any assistance that she may be having, I would invite you to beware. Only use the keto diet if you're using that in conjunction with a trainer who's very versed with women trying to conceive, women pregnant and breastfeeding, and how that can work with your cycle, because it can really impair and damage your cycle. We want to make sure that hormonal balance stays there if you're going to go on the keto diet, and just some general tweaks otherwise, probably even looking at your water intake alone may be sufficient to make the shifts that you want, so that you can not have that tailspin of having your hormones out of control by following the keto diet. And it really can throw off your thyroid levels. It can release more stress in the body, so you've got raised cortisol, and we know that all that feeds back to poor conceptive qualities, that you're less likely to conceive. I know that when I was trying a couple of these fad diets, for me, it was long after I had my kids. But once I hit 40, that weight kind of came on, and just that, fertile 40 and, flabby, what to do to what help to make that work. The fad diet certainly didn't help. The crankiness, the fatigue, the exhaustion, the brain fog, cycles got screwed up, and it just wasn't the right time, the right thing to do at any time. And getting back on that wholesome diet, just really going back and leaning into what are some of the basics in diet, eating habits, not dieting as a fad diet, but eating habits that can really serve me really, really well. And that's what made the difference, that even my thyroid condition, which I was told I'd be on a thyroid supplement for the rest of my life, well, thyroid supplement's gone. So when my weight creeps up a little bit, the imbalance occurs some more. And so when I work with my diet and my water intake, making sure that I'm at a better body mass index, the thyroid kicks back into working its magic and working normally. So I highly recommend being aware of what you're doing with these fad diets. So some easy swaps that you can do to help make that a little bit simpler for you can be like getting rid of the cereal and the snack bars and having an omelet for breakfast. If you've got to eat a bowl of cereal after you put the milk on, you're taking 5 minutes to do that. Give yourself 5 extra minutes and make yourself the omelet with some vegetables and a little bit of more protein in it. Throw in some chicken, something with that to help improve your start for the day. If that's also a challenge, then look at being into the, some protein smoothies for breakfast. So really get that protein in. You want to, get that body going for all the action that you're doing for the day. So some protein at breakfast can really make a difference. You want to keep maybe some nuts, cubes of cheese if you're allowed to have dairy, if that works for you and your body, and vegetables. You know, carrots are great. They're a bit sweet, so they may give you a quick boost, but if you're eating them in conjunction with celery, broccoli, and some cauliflower, whatever else that works for you so that you can have some pick-me-ups throughout the morning and the rest of the day can really, really help. Next is when you're having your meals, have a colorful plate. You want to see color from the vegetables, from the meat. So, some salmon, that's nice and pink. Your poultry is white. If you're having salmon, are you having rice? But what are the vegetables you're having with that? Some broccoli, some asparagus, you know, eat the rainbow, as they say. So you want to have foods from all the different colors. And yes, some of these foods are not ideal. Eggplant for, fertility can be a challenge. There's other things. So just be aware, but how much color do you eat? You never can go wrong with lots of green leafy vegetables as well, because there's so many benefits from your spinach and your kale, broccoli, asparagus, cucumber, avocado. So green leafy to green vegetables, collard greens, all those things will serve you really well. And don't forget the water. We want to make sure your water intake is really, really good so that the cells are going to be able to function normally. When you're hydrated, those cells of the digestive tract are well hydrated so they can do their job of moving in and pulling in those nutrients into the body so you can function your best. So my girlfriend, as well as many of my clients, have found that when they swap out the granola bars for some Greek yogurt with berries, they have a shift in their energy, have a shift in their staying power, and they feel satiated. They're full longer and they're fueled better. So never underestimate the power of what whole foods can do for you with your fertility. So those three pillars with the micronutrients, protein, complex carbs, and healthy fats are really, really important. Doing your best to find them from the periphery of the grocery store, because that's where most of those healthy foods are located. Knowing that you don't need to do an all or none diet. You don't need to make these drastic changes that you can't implement and maintain. Just do one thing a week, and make the shifts gradual so that you can bring that about in an easy way that you can sustain it. Because you want to sustain this way of eating for the rest of your life. You want to be healthy and well during pregnancy, while you're breastfeeding and postpartum, while the kids are growing up and you've got to chase after them. You need that energy. And then it helps you to feed your family the same way. So your kids are less cranky and don't have that, crazy hour, the witching hour between 4 and 6 before they have their supper time meal. They don't crash to fall asleep and wake up irritable. They sleep well, they feel better, and it just becomes a wonderful way of life. So the simple framework for swapping out foods for nutrient-dense alternatives is really the way to go. And then just one last suggestion for those of you, I mentioned other groups who may have fasting. For me, I lean into my Catholic faith. So for the Christians, the Catholics out there, who, when you go to Mass, you actually have the best nutrition that you could ever receive in the body and blood of Christ, I invite you to resume your religious practice and head out, have communion. It not only feeds the body, it will feed your spirit and your soul, and it can do nothing but raise you up to that greatness so that welcoming baby into the body and mind can be a lot more easy. So let me remind you that the diet is one piece of the body basics. It's number 3. The first is breath. Second is water. Don't forget the diet. And there's so many pieces in here. We can have a few more different episodes. So stay tuned for upcoming episodes to talk more about what's going on with some other details about that, because we could go on and on some of these different sections. Absolutely. Because your questions are very important to me. So send me a message. We can answer them on the show. We can easily have a show dedicated to that if there's a lot of people asking questions about that. Or by all means, find me on Facebook through my website or on Instagram, send me a DM, or better yet, book that beautiful baby discovery call and see what it is that may be your best next steps to making shifts in your diet so that you can have that best success. Make it easier, make it quicker, and just feel really good about how you're nourishing your body now and for the rest of your life. I'd like to thank you for being here again this week. It is always great, and I love this time that we get to spend together. So over the next week, I invite you to swap out just one food, what one thing, what one action in your diet that you can shift that will bring you closer to holding your baby. So until we do this all again next week, please remember that you get to be the one to set your thermostat for your fertility health, because your history is not your destiny. And if you need to, you can borrow my belief, because I certainly believe in you. See you next week. Reclaim your body's natural wisdom with me, Dr. Karen. My goal is to help you awaken, align, and amplify your mind-body connection to transform your fertility. Find free worksheets, instructional videos, our Facebook group, and more, including details on booking a free discovery session where we can create your personalized, beautiful baby blueprint today and get you closer to holding your baby. It's all online at www.thebabymakinggenius.com.
All content provided by Dr. Karen Stillman is not intended to replace medical help or advice from your doctor or healthcare provider. All content, including medications and visualizations, shall be regarded as self-help. Dr. Karen Stillman accepts no responsibility for any injury, loss, or damage as a direct or indirect result of using or relying on the information presented here, as she is not offering medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please see our full terms and conditions and privacy policy on the website at www.thebabymakinggenius.com.